Hello, hello. Welcome to today's live event. Today, we're going to talk about going beyond EQ to what's next. For those of you who don't know what EQ means, EQ stands for emotional intelligence. We'll get more into that a little bit later. Now, many organizations have heavily invested in emotional intelligence, only to realize that it's not driving the outcomes that they anticipated. So today, we're going to dive into why that's the case, and we're also going to take a look at what you should do next, what you should do when you go beyond emotional intelligence. Now, before we really jump into this and get started, I really want to take just a moment to tell you a little bit about myself. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Tia A. Williams, and I've worked in the tech industry for over 25 years as a SaaS executive, engineer, and a tech educator. What those titles don't really say about me is how I got my unique perspective on leadership. This perspective comes from having worked in the trenches of acquisitions, of rapid growth, and all of the things that plague a lot of organizations today, those modern challenges that traditional leadership approaches just really don't seem to address. Now, my strength is being able to see hidden gaps that plague even the best of teams and turn those into opportunities. So as we go through this, we'll talk a little bit about my personal framework and how I used it to help lead global teams through 2 back-to-back acquisitions. Now let's start off by going through some of the frustrations that many leaders are living with today. We can't always put our finger on what it is, and we can't name it if somebody asks, but it's highly frustrating nonetheless. Your engagement scores, they might be through the roof, but at the same time, the executive team is complaining that teams are missing deadlines, underperforming, and attrition and disengagement are high. Maybe you've already invested in EQ leadership training, so you feel like you're living in a paradox. Why is performance lagging despite having high EQ leaders? Or maybe you are a high EQ leader who doesn't understand why you're struggling. We're going to unpack all of this for you in the next half hour or so. So first, let's acknowledge that EQ isn't wrong. We've just been applying the wrong lens to it. It's only one part of the picture. It's like working on a puzzle, but the picture isn't clear because you can't find the missing pieces. To put it into perspective, let's imagine a scenario. You've been looking forward to a party. You look around, you see who's happy, who's in a quiet, intimate conversation, and who's sitting by themselves. You used EQ to help you take in that scene. But awareness alone doesn't prompt action. So you start to work the room. You use what you've observed proactively and strategically to engage with people at the party. You avoid the couple in the corner who look like they're in deep conversation, and you walk over to the person who looks like they've been sitting alone. Your first step is to make them feel welcome. Then together, you join the lively group of people talking. You are actively shaping the social experience. That's relational intelligence. Without relational intelligence, emotional awareness is just observation. Relational intelligence is the outward application of EQ. It's turning those insights into action. So let's talk about another analogy to help kind of really bring this home. Emotional intelligence is like a GPS calculating the route. It's gathering all the data. It sees the traffic patterns, it sees road closures, it sees speed limits, and it gives you a preview of the path. It's all information and awareness. It's incredibly valuable, but it's just a plan on the screen. Relational intelligence is you driving to the destination. It's the active part. It's navigating the streets, making turns, slowing down, speeding up, and actively moving your car towards the destination based on the information that your GPS provided. EQ is the perspective and context. Relational intelligence is the use of that context to drive and get you to your destination. So I'm going to share with you what this looks like in a real world scenario from my personal experience. This is a story about how I used an unconventional pattern interrupt based on what my emotional intelligence was signaling to me. We were in the middle of a chaotic integration, tension was high, teams were stressed, and I knew a standard top-down announcement about new processes was just not going to cut it. There was already broad resistance from both legacy teams about whose process we would unify on. So I knew this would create a bigger gap between the teams. So we created a new third way of doing things. And then it was time to make the announcement. So what I did was I rewrote the You're Welcome rap from Moana, and I used it to create an explanation of our workflow. I used champions on the teams and volunteers from both legacy groups to help me make a music video. Some employees even got their kids in on the act. It was a huge success. Now, most executives wouldn't want to look silly doing that, but that's exactly why I did it. And it was the thing that I can look back and point to and say, this is where it all started. This is where things began to change. Now, a really quick disclaimer, the video that you saw playing as I spoke, that's not the video that I'm referring to, but it does demonstrate that what I was talking about. It was about strategically using vulnerability and silliness so that the team see me as more than a shadowy figure. They see me more as a relatable person whom they trust and respect. That alone is a key reason why my teams were so high performing. I met them where they were. So let's break down the relational intelligence behind this. This wasn't just about being silly. Every part of it was a strategic choice. First, I read the room. My EQ signaled that the team was stressed and resistant. My relational intelligence told me that a standard approach was going to fail. I had to understand what the team was feeling to choose the right action. Second, I used creative intervention. That music video was a low-stakes pattern interrupt. It was designed to break the tension. By involving people from both of the former rival teams, we started breaking down the us versus them dynamic before we even talked about the new process. Third, this required intentional vulnerability, as I said before. An executive rapping about workflows is unusual, but by being willing to look a little bit silly, I modeled a level of vulnerability that gave others the permission to let their guards down and start trusting my intentions. And finally, this all served to build a shared identity. The video became a fun, memorable, shared experience. It was one of the first things we created together as a new unified team, and it became a foundation for bridging the gap between us. Now, you may have noticed I'm using the letter Q for quotient, not I for intelligence. There's a reason for that. The term emotional quotient was originally coined to signal that emotional intelligence is a measurable skill, much like IQ. My framework takes this a step further. We use relational quotient to emphasize that this is more than just an abstract idea. For us, it's a strategic, measurable skill that drives tangible business outcomes. It shows that our relational abilities can and should be measured and linked directly to results. Now, the way I see it, RQ has two distinct levels. Level 1 is basic. This is the foundation. It's your one-on-one game. It's your ability to truly listen to someone, show empathy, and build a real connection and trust with the other person. This is absolutely foundational and critical. Level 2 is about advanced RQ. And this is where we go from being a good teammate to being a strategic leader. This is where you apply those one-on-one skills to an entire complex system of organizations. It's about seeing the invisible org chart, not just who reports to who, but who holds the real influence. It's about navigating the dynamics between different departments, building bridges, and getting things done. And ultimately, it's about being able to influence without authority, leading not with your title, but with trust and credibility you've built across the entire network. Level 2 is where we help most of our clients at the leadership equation. Now, that only tells half of the story. Relational intelligence is foundation to modern leadership, but it's only half of the quotient. To make truly effective high-stakes decisions, you have to pair that relational insight with what we call the analytical quotient or analytical intelligence. Now, we've just been discussing that relational intelligence helps you navigate the human side of leadership. AQ is all about logic and data, the data-driven side. The visual representation of your left brain strengths that are essential for making smart business decisions. A high AQ leader is logic-driven, focuses on facts and data. They're highly analytical, able to break down and solve complex problems. And this is the strategic side of leadership, the part that ensures that your path forward is sound. The RQ discussion that we just had on relational intelligence was all about right brain thinking. Left brain thinkers are highly skilled at solving complex problems, but often lack the foresight of how those solutions will impact others. That's where your right brain comes in. So while relational intelligence helps leaders navigate the human side of complexity, analytical intelligence gives them the cognitive tools to cut through that noise and make sharp decisions under pressure. Many leaders get really good at reading people and understanding the emotional landscape, but when it comes to making those tough decisions under pressure, they get stuck. They know something's wrong, they can feel it, but they lack the analytical skills for root cause analysis. AQ gives leaders the skills and confidence to make those sharp decisions, even when they don't have all the information. It moves leaders beyond gut feelings to make decisions grounded in concrete data. Instead of getting stuck in analysis paralysis, they can quickly identify what's really broken and find a streamlined solution that sticks. When market conditions shift rapidly, leaders with strong AQ can quickly process new information and adjust strategies accordingly, keeping the organization agile and competitive. The key insight is AQ isn't about replacing human judgment, it's about enhancing it with systematic thinking and data-driven clarity. Now here is where the magic happens. Most leadership development treats these as separate skills. You go to an EQ workshop, a data analysis course, and you learn project management, but that's not how real leadership works. The leaders who truly are effective don't choose between being analytical or being rational. They use both sides of their brain simultaneously. They're what I call and thinkers, not or thinkers. Think about it. When you're facing a complex business challenge, you need both sides of your brain firing. You need the analytical side to process the data, identify patterns, and evaluate options. But you also need the relational side to understand how people will react, what the cultural implications are, and how to get buy-in. The breakthrough comes when leaders stop treating these as competing approaches and start integrating them. When they can look at the problem and immediately think, what is this data telling me, and how do people feel about this? What's the logical solution, and what's the path to implementation that people will actually embrace? This integrated approach doesn't just make better decisions, it creates better outcomes. Teams perform at higher levels because they feel both understood and directed. Innovation happens because you're combining creative thinking and analytical rigor. And conflicts become breakthroughs because you're addressing both the logical and the emotional elements at the same time. Now, this is the formula that came out of my M&A trial by fire, and it's what I've been building and refining ever since. It's beautifully simple. RQ, relational intelligence, plus AQ, analytical intelligence, equals integrated intelligence. But here's what makes this different from everything else that you've seen. This isn't just about adding skills together. It's about true integration. When you combine relational intelligence with analytical intelligence, you don't just get two separate capabilities. You get something entirely new, integrated intelligence. It's like the difference between having a toolbox full of separate tools versus having a Swiss Army knife where everything works together seamlessly. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. This sounds great and their to you, but I've got real problems to solve right now. I don't have time for another leadership framework. And you're absolutely right. You have fires to put out. But here's the thing. These fires, they're not random. They're not bad luck. They're symptoms of a deeper problem. Look at what's really happening in your organization right now. Leaders account for up to 70% of the variance in employee engagement. But poor leadership practices are negatively impacting productivity by up to 25%. And that's not a small problem. That's a crisis. Your people are spending 30% of their time just trying to get the information they need to do their actual work. And your leaders may be spending up to 13 hours a week firefighting problems that could be easily solved with the right framework and systems. And when people get frustrated enough, they leave. Disengaged employees cost you up to 34% of their salary in lost productivity, and replacing them costs 1.5 to 2 times their salary. So yes, you have fires to put out, but you're not using the fire extinguisher on the source of the fire, so you'll never put it out. You'll just keep burning money. The key is to systematically address the root cause, which will choke the remaining fires out of existence. Now, what these leaders say about working with me gets to the heart of it all. Who you work with matters. Too many consultants have never experienced what they're trying to teach. These testimonials speak to the proven nature of my work and my ability to take complexity and unravel it so teams can execute with clarity and alignment for better business outcomes. Now, the title of the slide says, "Put down the fire extinguisher and let's talk." I said that kind of jokingly, but really what I'm saying is true. It's time for clarity. It's time to build your leadership equation. Now, if you're ready to go deeper, scan the QR code to schedule 15 minutes for us to look at one core challenge and next steps for closing the gap to performance.